At 3:07 a.m., a maintenance worker unlocked the apartment door. The smell had already filled the hallway. Sweet, metallic, wrong. The moment the door opened, no one spoke. Furniture was overturned like it had been thrown in anger. Blood streaked the walls, pulled on the carpet, smeared across the coffee table. And in the center of the room, placed with unsettling care, lay 26-year-old Natalie Perez. Her hands were folded neatly over her chest. Her hair had been brushed away from her face. Her expression looked almost peaceful. The room screamed violence. Her body did not. One detective later said the contradiction was the moment he knew this case would never leave him. Natalie had been known as dependable, the friend who showed up early, the co-worker who stayed late. She laughed easily. She hated confrontation. She kept voice notes on her phone because she said typing felt too impersonal. Her sister would later tell police that Natalie had been trying to figure something out in the weeks before her death, but never explained what. That detail would haunt investigators, because whatever Natalie had been planning, she never got the chance to finish. The first suspect was obvious: Ethan Rowe, Natalie's boyfriend of 2 years. Everyone liked him. Quiet, soft-spoken, the kind of man people described as harmless. He had no criminal record, no history of violence, no reputation for jealousy. And yet, when officers arrived, Ethan was still inside the building, not hiding, not fleeing, sitting on the stairwell, waiting. That detail unsettled detectives more than if he had run. During early interviews, Ethan cooperated fully. He answered questions before they were finished, maintained eye contact for too long, spoke with emotional flatness that didn't match the situation. He admitted they had argued that night about Natalie wanting space, about her saying she felt watched, about her wanting to stay with a friend for a few days. Ethan said he understood. The problem was, nothing about the crime scene suggested understanding. Investigators initially believed the murder had happened quickly, a sudden rage, a single explosive moment. But the forensics didn't agree. Natalie had defensive injuries, multiple phases of assault, periods where the violence stopped, then resumed. That meant hesitation, and hesitation meant conflict inside the killer. A neighbor complicated everything. She claimed she heard Natalie crying, but not screaming. Nearly an hour before police estimated the time of death, that pushed the timeline back, which weakened the case against Ethan. For 12 tense hours, detectives believed the underscore toggle might have the wrong person. One investigator later admitted he began replaying the scene in his head, wondering if confirmation bias had blinded them. The doubt nearly cost them the case. Then came the detail no one expected. A forensic technician discovered Ethan had accessed Natalie's phone after her death, not to erase messages, but to change her voicemail greeting. It now said, "Hey babe, I'll call you back soon." The courtroom would later go completely silent when that detail was revealed, because it meant Ethan wasn't trying to escape reality. He was trying to preserve it. Under renewed interrogation pressure, Ethan finally spoke. Not angrily, not defensively, almost relieved. He said when Natalie told him she was leaving, something inside his head disconnected. He described it like watching himself from outside his body. He admitted he hurt her, but what made detectives physically recoil was what came next. Ethan said he stayed with her for over an hour, held her hand, cleaned the blood from her face, apologized. He said he needed her to look like herself again, because if she looked peaceful, he could pretend she was still choosing him. Psychologists later diagnosed Ethan with a severe abandonment-triggered dissociative breakdown, but even that explanation felt insufficient, because this wasn't just rage, it was possession. Natalie wasn't killed in the moment she tried to leave. She was killed because she reminded him he could be left. In the days after the sentencing, one detective returned to the apartment alone. He stood where Natalie had been found and realized something that disturbed him deeply. The killer hadn't stayed because he wanted to be caught. He stayed because leaving meant accepting she was gone, and he couldn't. Most murderers flee. Ethan waited. because in his mind, the relationship wasn't over. He had simply made the final decision. This case isn't terrifying because of the violence. It is terrifying because it shows how easily love can become ownership and how quietly control can turn fatal. Natalie didn't die because she was weak. She died because she trusted someone who couldn't survive without control. And that truth forces an uncomfortable question. How many warning signs do we excuse because they don't look dangerous at first? Sometimes the most deadly moment isn't anger. It's the moment someone decides they would rather destroy you than live without you. If this story made you pause, that matters. Awareness doesn't start with fear. It starts with noticing.